On Christmas morning, the house was quiet, wrapped in frost and the faint smell of cinnamon from the candles I'd lit the night before. I sat in the living room in my favorite armchair, hands wrapped around a warm blanket, listening to the faint hum of the heater. Outside, the wind scraped gently against the windows, and the early sun hadn't yet broken through the gray sky. I could hear the muffled sound of holiday music drifting from the kitchen, soft, cheerful, almost innocent. That's when Karen appeared, her presence bright and deliberate. She held a small teapot, steam curling from the spout like a promise. "Mom," she said, smiling too wide, "I made this one special for you. Chamomile with honey, just how you like it. Drink it while it's warm." Her eyes glittered in a way that didn't belong in that moment, too bright, too knowing. I looked at her carefully. For years, Karen had barely glanced up from her phone during our Christmas visits. She had a habit of whispering with Richard in the kitchen, exchanging glances that didn't include me, but this time was different. She leaned forward, watching my hands as I reached for the cup. My instincts prickled. Something was off. Richard, my son-in-law, was suddenly very interested in adjusting the Christmas tree lights across the room. His cup sat untouched on the coffee table, the dark liquid catching the light. It wasn't just inattentiveness, it was calculated avoidance. I didn't respond to Karen. I just looked at the tea, pale gold steam rising like a warning, and then made a quiet decision. I reached over and switched our cups. The movement was subtle, almost instinctive. Richard didn't notice. No one did, except Karen. Her smile faltered for the briefest of moments. "Wet? No, Mom. That one's yours. I made it special," she said, her voice tight. But I had already taken a sip from his cup. Black, bitter coffee, far from chamomile. I nodded politely, masking the tension that rippled through the room. 15 minutes later, Richard complained of dizziness. 20 minutes after that, he slurred his words and struggled to stand. Karen was on the phone by 30 minutes in, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. I sat perfectly still on the floral couch, watching the red and green lights blink against the frost-covered window. No one noticed the swap. No one remembered the cups. The next morning, Richard brushed it off as too much eggnog. Karen laughed, masking something in the way she studied me across the breakfast table, the way her jaw tightened when I asked for more coffee. I hadn't felt dizzy. Not a tremor. Not a moment of confusion. At 68, my body told me what was real. Richard was 42, healthy, athletic. Whatever Karen had planned wasn't intended to hurt me physically. It was meant to make me seem fragile, confused, unfit. I told them I needed to rest and drove home 3 hours early, ignoring Karen's protests. She said I shouldn't drive alone, that they had planned a special Christmas dinner, but I was already backing out, watching her figure shrink in the rearview mirror. That night, in my darkened kitchen, I sat with the brass anniversary lamp glowing faintly and the faint scent of cinnamon still lingering. My brain replayed every moment, rewinded like an old VHS tape, searching for the precise second the betrayal began. At 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed. "A message from Karen. Hope you got home safe, Mom. Richard's feeling better. Call me tomorrow." No apology, no real concern, just a status update, the way one sends a postcard to a distant acquaintance. I didn't reply. At 3:15, I walked to my filing cabinet, Harold's, worry box, and pulled out the folder Karen had given me last Easter. "Just some updated insurance paperwork," she'd said, sliding it across the table with a smile meant to charm. "The hospital requires it now. Bureaucracy, you know. I had signed it. Trusted her. Now, I read every word. It wasn't insurance paperwork. It was a durable power of attorney, notarized, granting Karen full control over my finances and medical decisions if I were deemed incapable. My hands didn't shake. They went cold. My signature stared back at me, rushed and slanted, the evidence of a mistake I hadn't known I'd made. And if that tea had been intended to make me confused, what then? Would she have declared me unfit, taken over everything? I felt something settle inside me. Not panic, not grief. Resolution. I would act decisively. I called my lawyer first thing in the morning. "Daniel," I said, "steady. I need you to review a document for me and help me change my power of attorney today." He paused. Then, calm as ever, "Of course, Mrs. Patterson. Can you come in this afternoon?" "Yes," I said. "I'll be there in 2 hours." Some storms don't announce themselves with thunder. Some begin quietly, inevitably, and wash away everything you thought was safe. I arrived at Daniel Westbrook's office just as the downtown snow began to fall, thick and soft, settling on the city streets like a blanket. Daniel had been our family lawyer since Harold and I bought this house in 1987. Silver hair, bifocals, navy suit, always impeccable. He greeted me with a nod, calm, steady, the kind of presence that made chaos feel manageable. "You brought the originals?" he asked, leading me to his office. I handed him the folder. My hand steady, he opened it slowly, adjusting his glasses twice before reading the final page. "Mrs. Patterson, did you understand what you were signing?" "No," I said, calmly. I had trusted my daughter. Trusted her smile, her helpfulness, the way she'd learned to make me feel safe since she was 12. He nodded, a flicker of recognition passing across his face. "This is a general, durable power of attorney," he said gently. "Not just medical matters. It gives Karen authority over your finances, property, and decisions about where you live if deemed mentally incapable." I didn't flinch. "Do you think I'm mentally incapable?" I asked. He raised an eyebrow, but didn't smile. "You drove here in a snowstorm. Balanced your checkbook yesterday. Finished the Sunday crossword in pen. Beating your neighbor Walter at online chess. You're more than fine." "Then I revoke it," I said. "And I want a new power of attorney with my grandson Tyler as sole designate." Daniel blinked, then nodded firmly. "Not Karen." "No, not Karen." He leaned back, adjusting his glasses. "We should also create a new living will and discuss trust options if you want to protect your estate." I was ready, more than ready. Over the next 2 hours, we drafted documents. He read every word aloud. I read them twice. No rush, no distractions. By the time I signed the last page, my hand was steady as stone. When I left, the snow had stopped, and late afternoon sunlight broke through the clouds. I felt lighter than I had in months. Back home, I made tea, real tea from a sealed box I had bought myself. Sat in the kitchen with the radio on low, just the way Harold liked it. Outside, the bare branches of the oak scraped against the gray sky. I opened my household ledger, flipping to the past 2 years, skimming expenses I had tracked faithfully for 40 years. $3,000 for Karen's emergency car repair, $800 for Richard's failed business investment, $1,500 for their kitchen renovation because the contractor demanded a deposit immediately, and the big one $22,000 last spring, what Karen had called a short-term loan. She'd cried on my couch, said they might lose the house. I had written the check that same afternoon, every time saying, "Of course, sweetheart, no more." At 5:30 my phone rang. "Karen." I stared at the screen until it stopped. No voicemail. 10 minutes later, a text, "Mom, we need to talk. Can I come over tomorrow?" I didn't reply. At 7, my phone rang again. Tyler, my grandson, 19, thoughtful, steady. "Grandma," he said softly, "I need to tell you something. Go ahead, honey." I braced myself. I don't know if I should, but at Christmas, before you got there, I overheard Mom and Dad in the kitchen. Dad asked if everything was ready. Mom said yes, that you'd be compliant by New Year's. I didn't know what they meant. It sounded weird. My throat tightened. "Did they see you listening?" "No. I was in the hallway getting my charger." "Thank you, Tyler. You did the right thing." There was a pause. "Grandma, are you okay? Mom's been saying things lately that you're getting forgetful. That maybe you shouldn't live alone anymore." I closed my eyes. "I'm not forgetful, sweetheart. I think I'm the only one seeing clearly." "I believe you," he said quietly. "I always believe you." After the call, I stood at the window watching the street lights flicker on. They had thought they could slide me into invisibility, stage concern, manipulate me into silence. But I had raised 2 children, buried a husband, managed a corporate accounting department for 23 years. No one, no matter how sweetly they smiled, was going to erase me from my life. The bank manager, Christine Park, young, firm, professional, became my next ally. I requested a full review of my accounts and any active authorizations. When she discovered an auto transfer to Karen's account under a prior power of attorney, I froze her actions immediately. A $750 a month, plus random withdrawals, charges to furniture stores I'd never visited, medical supply payments I hadn't authorized. I made a decision. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't family helping family. This was theft dressed up in Christmas sweaters, and I would treat it as such. 3 days later, Karen arrived unannounced, carrying a casserole dish like a peace offering. I opened the door before she could knock. "What do you want?" I asked, voice calm but firm. Her smile faltered. "Can't I just visit my own mother?" "You can." "You don't." The mask slipped, just for a moment. A cold flash in her eyes, smoothed over with concern. "Mom, you're scaring me. Maybe we should talk to someone." A doctor, just to make sure everything's okay. I've talked to someone, I said. My lawyer and my bank. Silence. The casserole steamed faintly in her hands. You went to the bank, she said quietly. I saw the transfers. Every single one. The emergency withdrawal, the furniture charges. You said we could. I never authorized theft. Her face flushed. I am not a thief. I'm your daughter. Then act like one, I said, closing the door. 2 weeks later, Tyler came to visit. He'd driven 4 hours from campus just to sit in my living room and eat the oatmeal cookies I'd baked. He looked tired in the way that comes from being stuck in the middle of something you didn't choose. Mom's furious, he said quietly, picking at a cookie. She says you've lost your mind. She says you're cutting off the family. I'm cutting off people who tried to steal from me. I replied, calm, not the same thing. He looked up at me, eyes steady. Did she really try to drug you? I paused, remembering the brightness in her eyes that morning, the steaming tea, the way instinct had screamed at me to switch the cups. I don't know what she put in that tea, I said softly. But I know what would have happened if I drank it. It wasn't good. It was meant to make me look weak, confused, unfit. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone. I recorded something the night after you left Christmas. Didn't know what to do with it, but kept it, just in case. He pressed play. Karen's voice, thin and sharp through the speaker. She wasn't supposed to switch the cups. The whole thing was ruined. We were so close. Richard's voice, low, frustrated. So, what now? We wait. We find another way. She's old. People will believe us eventually. We just need to be patient. Tyler stopped the recording. His hands trembled slightly. I'm sorry, Grandma. Should have told you sooner. I reached out, held his hands. You told me now. That's what matters. What are you going to do? He asked. I looked at him. Tyler, grown into someone decent despite everything. Careful and thoughtful. Yet strong in ways I hadn't expected. I'm going to protect myself. And I'm going to make sure you're taken care of properly this time. He didn't ask what I meant. He just hugged me hard like he used to when he was small and the world hadn't taught him caution yet. 2 days later, Daniel called. The trust documents were ready, everything organized clearly. My house, my savings, my investments, all wrapped in legal protection that Karen could not touch, no matter what. I named Tyler the primary beneficiary, with a provision that Karen would receive nothing if she attempted to contest the trust or question my competency. Daniel raised an eyebrow. That's aggressive. Clear? I said. He smiled faintly, sliding the documents into a folder. Also prepared the formal letter you requested, outlining the changes and reasons to your daughter. Certified mail. Signature required. Send it. Are you sure? He asked. This could end your relationship with her. She ended it when she tried to steal my life, I said. I'm just making it official. The letter went out that afternoon. I didn't wait by the phone. Didn't check email. I went home, made dinner, and watched the evening news like any other Tuesday. At 8:30, my phone rang. Karen. I let it ring. Again and again. Finally, a voicemail, Mom. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is insane. You can't just cut me off. We need to talk. I deleted it at 9:15. Another fine. If this is how you want to play it, go ahead. You'll regret this. Deleted that one too. At 10:00, I turned off the phone. Made my own chamomile tea from a fresh box. Sat by the window, watching stars emerge one by one through the winter clouds. For the first time in months, I didn't feel afraid. I didn't feel manipulated. I felt myself. Sharp, clear, whole. The months that followed were quiet in the best sense. I repainted the guest bedroom, took a watercolor class at the community center, and started volunteering at the library every Thursday, shelving books and helping kids with homework. Tyler called every Sunday without fail. He was thriving in school, had a girlfriend, and spoke about graduate programs. He rarely mentioned his mother, except once. She and Richard had moved to Arizona because they couldn't afford the house anymore. He seemed quietly satisfied. Spring arrived early. Daffodils I had planted along the front walk bloomed in March, bright against the patches of melting snow. I stood on my porch one morning, coffee in hand, realizing I hadn't felt this light in years. Freedom, clarity, peace. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. A professional-looking woman stood there with a clipboard. Mrs. Patterson, I'm Sarah Chen from Adult Protective Services. We received a report of potential elder self-neglect. I almost laughed. Let me guess. My daughter in Arizona. Sarah hesitated, confirming everything I already suspected. I need to ask you a few questions if that's all right. Come in, I said. I'll make tea. We sat in the living room. She asked about medications, routines, finances, social connections. I answered every question clearly. Then I handed her a folder of bank statements showing unauthorized transfers, a copy of the deceptive power of attorney, a recording Tyler had made, and a letter from Daniel confirming all revocations. Her expression shifted from professional neutrality to something like respect. Mrs. Patterson, this is very thorough. I've seen cases like this. Adult children trying to take control of a parent's assets. Rarely works when the parent is as sharp as you are. I nodded. Thank you, Sarah. She left, and I returned to my tea. Summer arrived hot and green. Tyler graduated with honors, got a job offer in Boston, and visited one last time before leaving with his girlfriend, Emma. Dinner on the back patio, fireflies blinking, jasmine drifting through warm evening air. I handed Tyler an envelope. His eyes went wide. Grandma, this is the house. The deed is in your name. The trust covers maintenance and taxes for the next 20 years. It's yours. He hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. I promise, he whispered. After they left, I sat alone in the garden, listening to crickets and the distant hum of the highway. Karen, her choices. Mine, I had won my life back. That summer, the garden became my refuge. The roses I had planted decades ago now climbed high, pink and red blossoms spilling over the trellis. I spent mornings with my coffee, notebook in hand, jotting down reminders and thoughts, keeping my mind sharp. I walked slowly through the yard, feeling the warm sun on my skin, counting petals, watching bees navigate the flowers as if the world had never gone wrong. Tyler called every Sunday, without fail. His voice was calm, steady, and full of life, a tether to all that was good in the world. Grandma, I met someone you'd like, he said one evening. I smiled at the thought. Emma, quiet and bright, a kind soul who had treated my grandson with patience and warmth. It reminded me of Harold, his eyes soft when he looked at me, full of steady reassurance. I spent afternoons organizing old photo albums. Black and white photos of Harold and me on our wedding day, our first house, our early years as parents. Memories that could have been overwritten by betrayal, by greed, by deceit, but weren't. They were mine, safe, real. The mail came one day with a small, thin envelope. No return address. I knew immediately whose handwriting it was. Karen. I hesitated, then carefully opened it. Inside was a single page, Mom. I know you probably won't read this, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. Not for what you think, because I still don't believe I did anything wrong, but for how things turned out. I never wanted us to be strangers. I just wanted to help. I thought I was helping. Richard and I are getting divorced. He found someone else. I'm alone now, and I keep thinking about all the things I should have done differently. I'm not asking for money or forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I think about you, that I miss you, even if you don't miss me, Karen. I read it twice, folded it neatly, placed it in the filing cabinet with the rest of the documentation, bank statements, revoked power of attorney, recording transcript. Not because I wanted her words, but as a record, a reminder of why I had made my choices. I didn't respond, I didn't call. Some doors, once closed, are meant to stay closed. Not out of anger, not spite, but out of wisdom. Tyler called that evening like he always did. How are you, Grandma? I'm good, I said, and for the first time in a long while, it was true. The following morning, I woke early, before the sun, brewed my coffee, and watched the sunrise paint the snow in shades of gold and pink. The oak tree, bare, reached its branches toward the sky. I couldn't tell if it was surrendering or celebrating. I didn't need to. I was 71. I had a house full of memories, a grandson who loved me, and a life entirely my own. That alone was everything. The days slipped by in quiet routines. I fed the birds, tended the garden, read in the library's sunlit corners, and explored new hobbies. Pottery classes, watercolor, walks in the park. I signed up for a community choir and laughed for the first time in years without thinking about who might be watching. Each moment was mine, uncontested, unmanipulated. Tyler called on his move to Boston, excited about his new apartment, his job, Emma by his side. I encouraged him, feeling pride swell quietly inside me, a warm, steady light. He was strong, kind, principled, nothing like his mother in behavior or temperament. I marveled at the man he was becoming, his integrity, his calm courage. Harold would have been proud. Summer deepened. Fireflies blinked against the evening sky. Warm nights smelled of jasmine and fresh, cut grass. I sometimes stood on the porch, arms crossed, listening to the neighborhood settle. Children played, dogs barked, neighbors waved. Life, ordinary and alive, moved in rhythms I had forgotten I could claim for myself. One afternoon, Walter, my neighbor, stopped by. He brought lemonade and cookies, and listened patiently as I recounted small victories, revoking the power of attorney, documenting Karen's deceit, the clean trust documents. He nodded, smiling warmly. "You've done what most people your age would hesitate to do," he said. "I've learned that some fights are worth having," I replied, "and some moments of clarity are worth protecting." Evenings became peaceful. Tyler called weekly, always checking in, always grounded. Emma sent postcards from Boston. I responded with stories of the garden, of birds nesting in the oak tree, and of the slow, steady unfolding of my own quiet days. No fear, no manipulation, no hidden agendas. Just life, lived carefully, fully, and entirely for myself. Winter returned, pale and crisp. The snow lay in long stretches along the lawn, and the oak's branches were etched sharply against the gray sky. I brewed my morning coffee, sat by the window, and felt entirely present. Every choice I had made, the T-switch, the trust documents, the careful records, the revocations, had led me to this moment, clear, free, alive, and for the first time in decades I didn't feel fragile. I didn't feel old. I felt victorious. Spring arrived gently that year. Crocuses pushed through the melting snow, purple and gold against the gray earth, small bursts of hope after the long winter. I walked the garden path every morning, notebook in hand, coffee steaming, recording the changes in the flowers, the birds, even the weather. Each detail mattered because it reminded me that I was alive, aware, and in control. The world had tried to push me into invisibility, but here I was, present, vigilant, and free. Tyler called as usual on Sunday. His voice carried warmth and purpose. "Grandma, I got an internship this summer in Boston, but I'll be back for a week before it starts," he said. I smiled to myself. The boy who had once timidly warned me about his parents' schemes had grown into a young man of courage and clarity. "I'll hold the fort," I replied lightly, though inwardly I was bursting with pride. Life settled into a rhythm. Mornings with coffee, afternoons tending the garden or volunteering at the library, evenings reading by the window or painting watercolors. Each day was deliberate, chosen, and completely mine. No one called to manipulate me, to gaslight me, or to steal my possessions. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again, unencumbered by deceit or betrayal. One Thursday, Walter dropped by unexpectedly. He leaned against the doorway, holding a basket of freshly baked bread. "You seem lighter," he said, eyes soft. "It's the freedom," I admitted, smiling. "After the storm, you realize how much weight you were carrying without even knowing it." He nodded knowingly. "Most people never get to see their storms clear. You're lucky, Mrs. Patterson." That afternoon, I opened my ledger, something I hadn't done in weeks, and reviewed the last year's expenses, the unauthorized transfers, the fabricated emergencies, the lies carefully masked with family smiles, all gone from my accounts. My records balanced. My finances were safe. My home was secure. And I felt an exhilaration I hadn't experienced since Harold and I first bought the house. Triumph, yes, but quiet and steady, like the heartbeat of a well-lived life. Tyler visited the following month, bringing Emma with him. I guided them through the garden, pointing out the roses, the crocuses, the small shoots of tulips pushing through the soil. "This is all yours someday," I said softly. Tyler looked at me, eyes wide, absorbing both the garden and the weight of my words. "I promise to take care of it, Grandma," he said. I believed him because he had proven himself honest, careful, and unafraid to stand up for what was right. Evenings were my sanctuary. I sat on the porch, the sun setting behind the oak tree, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Birds returned to their nests, and the wind whispered through the branches. I often reflected on Karen's betrayal, the tea, the manipulation. But I no longer felt anger, only clarity. Her choices were her own, my life belonged to me, untarnished by her schemes. One evening, I received another letter from Karen. No return address again. I hesitated, but opened it anyway. She wrote about Richard, about her regrets, about the loneliness she now faced. I read each word carefully, folding the paper neatly afterward. I did not respond. This was not out of spite, but necessity. Some doors, once closed, are meant to stay closed. Some lessons are lived, not corrected. That summer, the days stretched long and warm. I began a watercolor class at the community center. The instructor, an elderly woman with bright eyes, encouraged me to paint my memories. I painted the garden, Harold and me in black, and white sketches Tyler as a boy, and finally a portrait of myself, clear-eyed, resolute, free. Each brushstroke felt like reclaiming a piece of life that had almost been stolen. Tyler called from Boston with exciting news. He had been offered a permanent position in his field. I cheered for him, not just as a grandmother, but as someone who had witnessed resilience and integrity growing in him. He and Emma were doing well, and I felt joy that was steady, deep, and unshakable. On quiet nights, I would sit by the fireplace, sipping chamomile tea from a fresh box, the steam curling like a gentle reminder that I had survived, that I had outlasted greed and manipulation. Each sip was a triumph, each night a reaffirmation that life, even after betrayal, could be reclaimed, nurtured, and cherished. As the sun set over the neighborhood, I realized that the years had given me a unique kind of power. Not wealth, not possessions, but clarity, vigilance, and freedom. I was 71 now, and every morning I woke, brewed my coffee, and watched the world move around me. I felt entirely, indelibly alive. Nothing could take that away. Summer gave way to a crisp autumn. Leaves turned amber and gold, drifting lazily to the ground. I walked the garden path, notebook in hand, recording the change of seasons, every detail. The way sunlight hit the oak tree, the smell of damp earth, the pattern of squirrels gathering acorns. Felt like a small victory of observation and control. Life was mine, and I was fully awake to it. Tyler called as usual on Sunday. His voice carried warmth and purpose. "Grandma, I got an apartment in Boston. It's near the office," he said. I smiled. The boy who had once timidly warned me about his parents' schemes had grown into a man of courage and clarity. "I'm proud of you, Tyler. Just remember, family isn't always the people who share your blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose honesty, respect, and love," I said. He laughed softly. "I'll remember, Grandma. I always do." My days were a gentle rhythm now. Mornings with coffee on the porch, afternoons tending the garden or volunteering at the library, evenings painting or reading. Each activity was deliberate, chosen, and completely mine. There was no manipulation, no gaslighting, no fear of betrayal. Just clarity, presence, and freedom. Walter stopped by one afternoon, bringing bread and a warm smile. "You seem lighter," he observed. "It's the freedom," I admitted. "After the storm, you realize how much weight you carried without knowing it." He nodded knowingly. "Most people never see their storms clear. You're lucky, Mrs. Patterson." I nodded, feeling the truth of it in my bones. I reviewed my finances regularly. The unauthorized transfers, fabricated emergencies, and subtle manipulations were all gone. My accounts were secure, my home safe, my resources under my control. Triumph flowed through me, steady and deep, the way a river shapes the land over time, persistent, undeniable. One evening, Tyler and Emma visited. I showed them the garden, pointing out the flowers, the shoots of tulips, the early, blooming roses. "This is all yours someday," I said softly. Tyler's eyes reflected both wonder and responsibility. "I promise to care for it, Grandma," he said. I believed him because he had proven himself honest, careful, and unafraid to stand up for what was right. Evenings on the porch were sacred. The sunset, the wind through the oak, the smell of jasmine, all reminders that life, even after betrayal, could be reclaimed, nurtured, and cherished. Karen's name crossed my mind sometimes, but only fleetingly. Her choices were her own, my life belonged to me, untarnished. One day, I received another letter from her, unsigned. Inside, she wrote about Richard, regrets, and her loneliness. I read it, folded it neatly, and placed it with the other records, the bank statements, the revoked power of attorney, the recording, the documents. Not out of anger, but as a testament to clarity and the life I had fought to keep. I did not respond. Some doors, once closed, are meant to stay closed. Tyler's life flourished. He graduated, started his career, and called faithfully every Sunday. Emma became like a daughter to me, caring, kind, and respectful. Together, they reminded me that life, despite its betrayals, could still offer profound love and connection. On my 72nd birthday, Tyler and Emma threw a small party. Friends from the library, neighbors, and Walter gathered in the backyard. Fireflies blinked against the fading sunlight, laughter mingling with the scent of jasmine. Tyler gifted me a restored photo of Harold and me on our wedding day. I hung it above the fireplace, where the morning light would catch it each day. It was a reminder that the life I had fought to protect, my home, my freedom, my family, was intact. That evening, I stood before the photo and whispered to Harold as if he were there. "I did it," I told him. "I kept the house. I kept myself. I didn't let them take what we built. I could almost hear his voice, low and warm. I never doubted you for a second. I smiled, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Outside, the summer wind rustled the oak, carrying the scent of jasmine and fresh, cut grass. Life had returned to quiet, steady rhythm. The world kept turning, but inside my home, everything was still. Not empty still, peaceful still, the kind of stillness that only comes when you've fought for something and won. I was 72 years old. I had outlived my husband, outmaneuvered my daughter, and outlasted every assumption anyone had made about what a woman my age could handle. And I wasn't done yet. Tomorrow I'd wake early, make coffee, feed the birds, perhaps start a new book or take that pottery class I'd been eyeing. The days stretched ahead, full of possibility. I intended to fill every one of them. I felt alive, free, and entirely myself. Money, property, or schemes didn't matter anymore. What mattered was clarity, independence, and the unshakable knowledge that I had earned my life back, and I would live it fully. Outside, the oak tree swayed gently in the morning wind. I sipped my coffee, watched the snow glisten in the soft sunlight, and stepped out onto the porch. No destination, no deadline, just me and the world, exactly as it should be. I smiled, breathed deeply, and felt, finally, completely at peace.